And I just got all excited and thrilled, and I started shaking him, like, I grabbed his shoulders and was shaking him, and in that moment, I realized, I'm an idiot. What he was wondering, "What the why would you be so thrilled for that for me?" But that knowing that he gets to do that, it gives me joy, like it's a nugget. I get to celebrate his nugget in that
Yeah.
moment, and I'm doing it because I need nuggets. I need right? I wanna feel those
Even if they're not yours,
yeah, and that's emotion. That was
you know,
pure his wife looked at me like I was cuckoo because, I'm cold and a robot, and I'm shaking him. I'm so excited, and I'm bouncing around. That to me is was she probably didn't appreciate it. I don't know if they appreciated it or not, right? But it wasn't about them. It was about me. It was about me expressing excitement for what I thought would be excitement for them. Now, it may not be excitement for them. Maybe they don't want their daughter to move out. I don't know, right?
well,
But
funny story, I had a very similar experience. I was, I went to the wedding of my good friend, it was actually Will Martin, you know Will.
yeah,
His daughter got married, and so we were invited to the ceiling, and I was so excited for him, and I'm like, "Well, this is so awesome." And he's like, "This is so hard." I was like, "What?
yeah,
How is this hard?" And it just I was celebrating his nugget,
yeah,
that he was like, "This is not a nugget, this is a dirt clod."
yeah, yeah,
And in reality, isn't that doesn't that just come full circle where we think we can interpret the way other people are feeling about a situation, and that ability to at to mislabel what someone else's the motivation and what they're feeling allows us to feel to or offended.
offended.
Sorry.
Yeah,
What anyway, so they can get offended. We can get offended because we give someone something that is not true on the bad side. And in our two cases right here, we were excited. It was good from our perspective. So we weren't offended by it, but they might have been like, no, this is horrible. I'm losing one of my daughters. I love her. I'm not going to be able to, she's going to cleave unto her husband, and I'm out because it's cleave unto him and none else, you know?
yeah,
So
and that
it's
that's
fun
interesting
to
because
recognize that.
because, you know, I have emotions, and I have big emotions, right? And sometimes my big emotions are nuts, right? I mean, the question becomes that experience with them got me closer to goodness and God in my mind, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not for them. I don't know. I thought about this all day, and I'm thinking I probably should call him and say, "Hey, I don't know if I should apologize or." And he's obviously going to say, "No, don't apologize. It was honest emotion. You were excited." And one of the things for me is I think I feel I'll never experience that, right?
Yeah.
I'll never experience that, and that's an exciting idea, and I don't get to experience it. So I'm gonna try to experience it somehow, and if that's through you, I I don't I'm not trying to offend. I'm just excited for you. I wanna feel excitement, you know? And maybe that's the emotion that I
Yeah.
should learn to manage better. Maybe that's right, and that's the point of this whole thing is there are emotions that some may say I'm cold, and I may say, "No, I manage that
Mhm.
well." There are some emotions where they say, "He's nuts," and I would say, "No, I'm expressing that emotion to its fullest," right? It's a mixed bag
Right.
for a lot of different people, right? The question, I guess, back to the original statement is how do we how I guess it's up to us to figure out, right, which emotions we need to temper and to manage. Which emotions should we let freely flow? How do we do those in a spirit of love? Emotions are from God, right? What all of them, they all come
Okay, so here you
from
go.
experience.
anything taken to an extreme can become a vice, except
There you go.
I haven't figured out how compassion can yet, but I'm still working on that.
Yeah,
Everything else I can get to be a vice. One of my I Sarah and I took parenting classes when we were first married, and then we took the same parenting classes after we had a few kids. One of the things that has stuck with me and resonated was how to respond to your children during times of heightened emotion. And that is, notice I didn't say at times of awful emotion, and I didn't say during times of great emotion, during times of heightened emotion. And this was by Gaylor. His name's Gayland. Anyway, Gaylord? No, I don't know. Ball. His last name is Ball. Great kid. And I say kid because he's way older than me. But he he said if your kid comes home and says, "Dad, I'm pregnant," your response should be, "Oh." And if they come home and they say, "Dad, I've wrecked the car," your response should be, "Oh." And that ability to not pass judgment on what comes out of their mouth is a future invitation for them to share more news with you.
great, great, great
And
advice.
so for everybody out there, until I know how they feel about it, I try and I fail all the
Yeah,
time. I just failed at the ceiling of my good friend's daughter. I try and wait for them to acknowledge, "Hey, is this a dirt clod or is this a piece of gold?" And if you can just give it time and say, "Oh," and get more, then you can then say, "Oh, well, I'm excited for you," or "I commiserate with you. I have compassion for you." And that invitation for future sharing is something that parents, we shut it down way too much. When they come in and they say, "Hey, I'm pregnant." "Oh my goodness, that's horrible." Well, what if your daughter's been trying to get pregnant for the last 5 years? Right, and just hadn't told you, and it hurt so bad that she just said, "Oh, yeah, we don't want kids, we don't want kids, it's fine." But internally, she's dying every month because she cycles and she doesn't have that opportunity to have a baby, you know? And then she comes in, and you, from her past experience, she said she doesn't want kids, and she says, "Dad, I'm pregnant." And you go, "Oh, I'm so sorry," but she's excited. You don't know.
right.
You don't know. So to allow ano invite her to share more in the future by responding, "Oh."
Yeah,
And then once she tells you how she feels about it, have compassion either way. To try and figure out how to support her and deal with the consequences of what she just shared.
and that does take emotional management. That
Yeah, I would call it emotional discipline.
discipline is a better word, and that's
So,
not cold. That's not robotic. That's
nope.
not cold. That is discipline because you want a certain outcome. You want them to be able to talk to you about anything. Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that's really where the difference is, and maybe that's the point of this whole thing is to let's all caution ourselves on saying somebody's too emotional or not emotional enough. Right?
Yeah.
And what I
Or,
never did was I never
"Hey,
told
that
my
shouldn't
wife
bother you." Oh,
yeah, I never told yeah,
you
yeah,
never
I never
told your
told
wife
my
that?
wife, "You're being too emotional." I knew that wasn't a good idea ever. So I never said that, right?
Yeah.
I think there are probably people that uh, but she did say, "You're cold," to me on occasion, right? And that's okay. I wasn't offended by it. I just didn't really know I didn't understand the details of it, right? Again, thank goodness I wasn't too offended by it because I could have said that might be the other thing. If she'd have said, you don't have emotions, you're cold," and I would say, "Well, you're way too emotional. Let's meet in the middle." I don't think that would have gone very well for us.
No, it wouldn't have. I'll tell you one thing, something I did do one time when Sarah was like, "You just you don't feel the same way I do about things. You don't have that emotion. It's easier for you." Right?
Yeah.
She said those words. So I took all the boxes off the shelves and I scattered them on the floor and I let her see the mess.
Oh,
I let her just see the turmoil internal. And then I immediately started boxing them back up and I said, "Now listen, I can let this stuff destroy me and not act, or I can manage, to use your words, or keep discipline and only have constructive responses to the emotions occur. And that might seem cold because I can't let just a little bit of the emotion out because it comes out in a flood, for me
Right.
anyway,
Right.
until time has passed, and then I can show you the appropriate response based on a level that is constructive instead of it all gushing out at once.
Yeah.
You tell me, what one do you prefer? And she goes, I prefer the robot. I
Yeah.
was like, okay,
Works
good.
somehow to work together that way, right? It's yeah, you're right. It's
Yeah.
and you said it best, in heightened moments, right?
Yeah.
That is when it requires discipline, and I think that's really what we're attempting to do. The cold and robotic men out there, we're attempting really to have some sort of emotional discipline because our a
Yeah.
lot of our emotions are, you know,
I'll tell you, we
violent,
are
angry,
dangerous.
mean.
And we are dangerous. And
That's
if
what
we
it is.
allow our emotions to
Yes.
control
Yeah.
our actions, we will hurt people
Yes.
and do harm that cannot easily be repaired.
Yes.
And so I don't care if someone perceives me as cold or robotic or emotionless. I do care. I do care if they avoid me because if I lash out, I can destroy people, whether that's verbally, physically, or emotionally. It is not a pretty sight. And so I work really hard at disciplining myself and only allowing the emotion to come out after it's safe.
And I think you just reminded me of something my dad taught me when I was a kid, and I think it's part of this emotional discipline, right? It's I remember one time I was in an argument with my brother, and I said something not nice, and he pulled me to the side and said, "We're not having that." And I said, "But it's true. It's the truth." And it was the truth. And I said, "You want me to speak the truth or you want me to lie?"